Hi, it's Eva. Tonight I'm going to be talking about post-traumatic growth and early childhood and focusing on how we can get over traumatic events from our past, with a heavy emphasis on early childhood and the teenage years so that they don't mess up or complicate our relationships we're having as an adult. Especially in like intimate relations or parent-child dynamics, because they come up. And I'm also gonna talk a little bit about the domino theory I have about trauma, which is basically how when you have a really terrible event, unexpected trauma, that often that first one's not your fault, right? That somebody else causes that, okay? But what happens is, subsequently, in order for you to deal with that, sometimes trauma victims will self-sabotage or get in really risky situations in order to feel better about said trauma and the shame and guilt that comes with it. And they often don't have anyone to really share what's happened with, because a lot of these events are like, well, they're, they can be graphic or just, it's almost like you feel like you're an informant for the police, because like you're telling on your own family or close family friends, or it's a terribly uncomfortable feeling. Most, especially like sexual exploitations, happen not from complete strangers, but actually the people closest to the families. And, like a babysitter or an uncle, or, the boyfriend of a friend who came, over often for sleepovers with, a daughter who was living there. Like these kinds of things. And a lot of times it's older siblings. And unfortunately, sometimes it's actual parents, where there's a family history of, incest, and the behavior is copied from generation to generation because they don't think that it's wrong. And so as long as they keep it secret, it goes on. So I have participated in some mental health internships where some of these situations did come up. So I also was in a program for low-income families, a while ago, but for literacy, and these issues did happen. So these are not things I'm just getting from movies or books. These are like real things that are happening to people. So, and I'll also talk about my own situation. But first, let me give you my demonstration about trauma. Okay, so if you don't know me, you haven't heard any of my other videos, my mom was an unmedicated paranoid schizophrenic, and I was raised by her the first 4.5 years of my life. And during that time period, some really serious things happened, and I had to be taken away from her. So she did commit acts of both child abuse and neglect. So I feel like, especially childhood research I've done, I've read about Carl Jung, and I've done a lot of studying into child psychology, and most unfortunately for me, a lot of permanent childhood wounding comes that will affect you for the rest of your life happens the first 3 years of your life. I thought it was the first 5 years of your life, but after I did research, it's actually the first 3. So a lot of that is like when a mother is holding her baby and the baby's looking up at her. They're making eye contact and feeding is happening. Like nurturing is happening. Okay, so if you are with a parent who is very cold, maybe narcissistic, or somebody who has an addiction, a very, addiction that's physically causing them to, be in a state where they're craving whatever that substance is, that's gonna hijack their mothering instinct. In my case, my mother's severe mental illness. I mean, she spent basically all day long talking to voices and hallucinating to, people who were clearly not there. And she would get extremely mad and agitated if you would interrupt her. So my father did most of the child rearing, but, she did set our place on fire while we were all home. And then another time, I got a mild traumatic brain injury from her. So, and I was 5. So these violent things happen, but then I also can't help and think, like when she was holding me and like I see these pictures of me, like, because I was a preemie. I was only like 4.5 pounds when I was born. So, and my parents didn't believe in, because of both of their mental illnesses, especially hers, they didn't believe in like hospitals at that time. So she got no prenatal care, and then there was no care after my dad delivered me by reading a book, and then I had no postnatal care. So the whole situation was, just very highly unusual. What was my point about this? Oh, so I listened to this video about like the mother wound and like Carl Jung. I hope I'm saying his name right. I think the J is silent. Anyway, it's basically like saying that like that nurturing care that you get and that bonding with a parent, like that's why they do like skin on skin contact when women have babies. Well, I'm 100% sure that my mom was not doing that with me. She was perhaps doing the task of breastfeeding or holding a bottle. I've seen pictures of both, but there's no way that she was, intimately bonding with me, because she had flat affect, which just basically means you don't. If somebody has flat affect, it's like their eyes are dead looking, and it's like they don't. Like, let's say I was in a coffee shop with someone who had flat affect, and they dropped their coffee cup and it shattered all over the floor. Like somebody with flat affect, they probably just would have like a poker face. Like they wouldn't even register any emotion of that happening. It's just like they're shut off. They're like emotionally not available to react to anything, I guess. So that's why they call it that. And it gets confusing because a lot of people are of mental illnesses are on medications that have side effects that blunt their emotions. But somebody who's truly schizophrenic will have blunt affect. Anyway, yeah. So I did wonder that when I read the article about, like, obviously my dad must have done a whole lot with me, because I think I've turned out better than would have been expected, considering they told my mom not to have children at an early age because of her schizophrenia. But I mean, it was the 50s, and she had me in like the 70s, so she'd been mentally ill for maybe 11 years by the time she had me. All right, so my theory for trauma is, okay, let's say here's the first cup. This will be, let's say this is the fire, because I was like 3 years old. Okay. And I mean, I totally remember it. I remember it because I was in the bathtub. My dad was giving me a bath, and then all of a sudden there were all these flames, and my dad was taking my bathtub water to put out the fire because the fire trucks were on their way. But we lost everything anyway. So, okay, so let's say this is the fire. Okay, so that's trauma 1. Then say this is the head injury. Okay, that's trauma 2. There was some other stuff, but not as serious as these 2 events. Then moved away from my parents permanently, though I got to visit my dad once or twice a year, and my mom I saw a lot more frequently because my mom's mom is who raised me, so she was still caretaking my mom in her mental illness. So that's where a lot of extra trauma happened because I had to keep re-engaging with her, my mom. Okay, so so I was separated from I was glad to be separated from my mom, even as a little kid. I did not want to be around her because she scared the shit out of me, but she was like always screaming. Then I would say I had a pretty good childhood, besides my grandfather dying when I was 12. There were some visits with my mom, which were awful, but they weren't deeply traumatic. I mean, they were just normal misery. All right. Then when I was about 14 years old, I decided I came up with this brilliant plan that the way that because my family insisted I see my mom, and I didn't want anything to do with her at all because she was violent and scary and out of control, and like we would slip Haldol, the pills, into her Pepsis all the time, but it's like she's deeply unpredictable and it's just dangerous. So anyway, after my grandfather died, there was an incident with my mom that was extremely horrible where she slapped my grandmother and then really hard, and then she chased me down and I hid in a closet, but she pulled me out of it and started kicking me and then told me I was the scum of the earth. So, and then people came, like real mental health people, and put her in a straitjacket, and I got to see that, and then I ran away, and then my grandmother had to drive around the neighborhood and find me. I was hiding in a cemetery. So now we're up to 4 cups. So, okay, when I was 14. All right, so I had this idea, how am I going to get out of seeing my mom? And then I had I don't know if I saw it in a movie or something, but I had the idea that if I could get married, because where I lived, if you were 16, you could get married. So I thought, that's only 2 years, so I'll get with someone who's older than me, and then they'll marry me, and then I can not see my mom, which is kind of insane because legally I would only have to see her till I was 18. So I was literally doing all of this to save myself 2 years, which gives you an idea of how scared I was. All right, so person that or who picked me, and I guess, or I picked them, or I don't know what happened, but he was 5.5 years older than me, and I was 14 when I met him. All right, so that meant when I was going with someone so much older, like he would want to have sex. So I started having sex when I was like on my 15th birthday. So I did not want to. But he didn't force himself on me at all. I agreed to it. Because I felt like that was the deal. Like, if I wanted somebody to protect me from my mom, I had to like go all in. All right, so now I'm up to 5 cups. All right, so turns out he had some issues, and I'm gonna have to check the rules for YouTube before I say the next thing I was gonna say. Okay, I'll come back with that at another time. All right. He was physically abusive, alcoholic. So then I started getting hit a lot. Okay, so 3, 6. So my mom's hitting me when I'm on vacation with her. My boyfriend's hitting me when I'm home with him. So, and I'm like 16. We ended up not getting married, thank God, and he moved away. And because he moved somewhere near, close to where my family lived, I ended up seeing him again. He sought me out. I didn't even know he knew where I lived on campus. And then there was, it's on one of my other videos, there was a rape that happened that was really awful. Okay, so now we're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm 20 at this point. 19. No, I'm 19. 18 or 19. No, it was 19. Then I developed a terrible, I finished college, I did great, but unfortunately, spent some time with my dad on a vacation and also at his place, and he had bipolar 1, which does have mania, long periods of mania, and he had a bunch of manic episodes around me where he was hallucinating, and it was scary. I mean, I didn't think he was going to hurt me at all. I mean, he's a doll baby, but it was traumatic. So yeah, I'm going to say that gets a cut. Obviously, I was acting like the adult, not him. All right, now I graduate college. I get involved. I get involved with an interesting boyfriend who had a heroin problem. So I got involved with hard drugs. Oh, now at 8 maybe. So yeah, that was 3 years of my life flushed down the toilet. Go to 2 rehabs, get over that. Obviously get out of that relationship. End up falling in love, getting pregnant, and marrying a, what do you call it when someone's high achiever, but they're also a substance abuser. There's a term for it. Okay, well, I married a drug addict, and I knew ahead of time, and that went on for a long time. All right, so it ended badly. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, so 10 cups. So think of these as like layers around your heart. How am I supposed to have a relationship with somebody, a new person who's maybe really awesome, when I have all this trauma, all this fucked uppery? How is anybody going to get through all these walls I've built to protect myself? Or how am I going to trust anybody or not project all this onto them? It's going to be really hard, right? So that's the example I wanted to show, that a lot of times when we say we've had trauma in our childhood, I think people think like, oh, it's just one or two very serious events. Well, that's probably true. I mean, in my case, it was a couple events really serious events with my mom. The two were the serious. Head injury and the fire. However, as you can see from the 10 cups, all that domino stuff, that's all my reactions. That's stuff I self-sabotage and got involved because I had unhealed trauma, and I had not, even though I've been going to therapy, I just had a lot to do. A lot to walk through. A lot to work through. And many times I was not, I didn't divulge everything to some therapists because I had too much shame and guilt. And I was embarrassed about some of the things I'd done to make myself feel better, like the drug addiction and getting involved with the older man in high school. So I wasn't, what do you call it, transparent. So maybe that's why some of it worked very, very well, and some of it didn't. What is my point? My point is that you should have grace for yourself, because there's probably a lot of things you did after somebody, broke through the private space we all have to be who we are. There's somebody, trampled that and like severely hurt you and damaged you, when you were a minor, and there was nothing you could do about it because you couldn't fight back. So I have 8 cups here of all things that I pretty much self-perpetuated. Maybe 2 of those were things other people did to me, but I put myself in most of these situations. I'm not saying I'm at fault for all these situations, but I'm not saying I'm innocent either. These were the result of not facing my own truth and working through this a long time ago. But a lot of it was, everything was still unfolding. I mean, my marriage was like over 20 years, so it's like, you're hoping that things will get better, and so it's like a work in progress. So I wasn't really like getting much help for it, because I didn't want people to say, oh well, you have to leave. I was very confused by wedding vows, I guess, like, in sickness and in health. To me, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, those are illnesses. I don't think anybody would purposely try to destroy their own lives without maybe some biological component or something, learned behavior. But, after a while, when there's incarceration or CPS involvement or whatever, just, you have to do the best thing for yourself and your children. You just can't keep going with that. But I guess I'm going to just end this video because I'm out of time. But I hope that it helped you understand to give yourself some self-forgiveness, and shows you how when people say get over your early childhood issues, that it's really not as simple as just getting over the actual events. You have to get over all the subsequent things you did or were involved in, perpetuated by your low self-esteem, low sense of self-worth, and the shame you probably carried, or helplessness, because all those things are true. And we come up with all kinds of quirky behaviors to protect ourselves or deal with not wanting to think about these terrible things that have happened. And those things in of themselves cause more of these problems, and you just end up with more cups. So I would never want anyone to have that many cups because it's really shitty. So I hope this helps.